Shalom, I'm Rabbi Stephen Sachs. It's often said that Josephus was the Jewish Benedict Arnold. But who was Josephus? Josephus is the famous Jewish historian who chronicled the Jewish revolt against Rome from 66 to 70, Common Era. But before Josephus became a historian, he was a zealot commander in the revolt against Rome. He was a general. Josephus and his men were trapped on the hilltop of Gamla, which is called the Masada of the North. You'll see why. He and his men decided to commit suicide rather than turn themselves over to the Roman forces. His men committed suicide, and Josephus himself remained. He then claims that he received a prophecy from God in which God said to him, Josephus, look, you're no good to me, Dad. Turn yourself over to the Romans and chronicle this revolt, so later generations of Jews will see the mistakes that this generation made and will be able to learn from it. So Josephus presented himself to the Roman general Vespasian and said, you, sir, will become the emperor. Vespasian took a liking to him. Of course, he just told him to become the emperor and allowed him to chronicle the revolt. Now, do I think for 1 minute that Josephus was a prophet? No, of course not. God didn't speak to him. But was Josephus a traitor? No. Josephus was a pragmatist. Josephus realized that this revolt against Rome was going to be an absolute disaster. And he was right. It ended in disaster. It ended with the destruction of the Second Temple and thousands of Jews being carried off into slavery. Josephus realized that just because you're heading down a path does not mean that you have to continue to head down that path. If you see that path as a path to nowhere, a path of destruction, stop and change directions. And that lesson was learned just in the nick of time to save Judaism by Yochanan ben Zakkai. 4 years later, as the Romans surrounded Jerusalem preparing for their siege, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the leader of the rabbinic faction in Jerusalem, realized, as Josephus did, that this revolt was a mistake and nothing good was going to come out of it. He had to find a way to preserve Judaism, or else it all would have been destroyed along with Jerusalem. He wanted to go out and speak to the Romans. But according to the Talmud, he realized that the zealots in Jerusalem would never let him out to speak to the Romans. They would consider that an act of treason. So, his disciples put him in a coffin, and this way the zealots in Jerusalem allowed his followers to take him out to the fields to bury him, but instead they took him to Vespasian. He swore loyalty to the Roman Empire on the condition that Vespasian allow him to set up a yeshiva in Yavne, which is a town south of Jerusalem. It was at this yeshiva that Judaism was saved. Yochanan ben Zakkai transformed Judaism from a temple-centered religion into a synagogue-centered religion. And that transformation saved Judaism after the destruction of the Second Temple. Jews still had a way to communicate with God. It wasn't at the temple, the Beit HaMikdash. It wasn't through korbanot, it wasn't through sacrifices. It was through tefillah, through prayer. We can learn a powerful lesson from Josephus and Yochanan ben Zakkai. And that message is, we can change directions. It's not too late. Just because we're heading down a certain direction doesn't mean we have to continue to head down that path if we see that path is the wrong path. It's a very appropriate lesson, especially as the high holidays appear within the next couple months. I today am going to start working on changing directions myself. I'll give you an example. By nature, I'm a grudge holder. I tend to hold grudges. It's not a good thing. When you hold a grudge, it eats you up, not the person you're holding the grudge against. And the Torah tells us, lo titor, do not hold grudges. It's a sin to hold a grudge. So my goal for this upcoming year is to not hold grudges. When I catch myself holding a grudge, I'm going to say to myself, Stephen, stop. This isn't good for you. Let it go. So now I'm going to ask you in the next 2 months, as the high holidays appear on the horizon, to stop and find ways in which you would like to change directions, ways in which you would like to change yourself for the better. Now you may be saying to yourself, nice message, Rabbi, but the high holidays are still 2 months away. Why am I thinking about this now? Come back to me in a month, in 6 weeks, and then I'll be receptive to this message. Well, the reason I'm asking you early is because changing or improving midot, personal characteristic traits, is not an easy thing. Adults really don't change their personalities as much as they refine their personalities. They try to improve, work around the edges. And that, my friends, is not an easy thing to do. It's not something you do overnight. It is a lifelong process. Let's start working on it now. So by the time the high holidays come around, we will have already made significant improvement. Let me give you an example. Perhaps you have a problem with anger management. Deep down there, you're a nice guy. But because of an anger management issue you're having, people often see you as somebody who gets angry, who blows up, who is not really the most pleasant person to be around. Ask your friend, ask your spouse to let you know when you look like you're getting angry. Say to you, take it easy, calm down. Let's take a step back and look at this and find a way of dealing with the situation without losing your temper. Maybe go to anger management counseling. Let me give you another example. Maybe we want to work on gossiping less, not speaking lashon hara. And this is something we could all use work on. Human nature is we gossip by nature, but it's not a good thing. So next time you're about to gossip, you feel that lashon hara ready to come out of your mouth. Stop. Say to yourself, would I eat a cheeseburger? No, I wouldn't eat a cheeseburger. So I will not speak lashon hara. It's the same thing. They are both sinful. So my friends, as we see the high holidays approaching on the horizon, let's remember, it's not too late to change courses. Rather, let's chart out a new direction. Start working on it now. And as the high holidays approach, we will be able to enter the new year with our heads held high because we are headed in the right direction.